Chat, I want to do something that I think is very, very important, which is let's watch Zohran's old video from Gravel Institute because I want to post it.
Grab the wrinkly dog, 11 letters, and it's a rhyme.
Grab the wrinkly dog, and it's a rhyme?
Hey, my apartment's on fire.
Seder for strategic politics. I even did a whole thing about how I yelled at them for their Luigi poll. Never mind.
Come on.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. First
We're
things
just
first.
vibing here. We're not listening.
Are you insured?
Yes, sorry. Here you go. If we could just hurry, though, that'd be great, because my apartment's literally on fire.
We got a slight issue here.
What issue?
It says here you're behind on your premium payments.
Really? I don't think so.
I do. It's right here on your file. $660.
Oh, my bad. Can we just take care of that later?
No can do. See, your specific provider, Bright Shield Protector Fidelity Horizon, says you need up-to-date premium payments for your provider to be reimbursed. Can you not talk over me?
I was talking with you to support you.
So the thing is, I haven't reached my deductible anyway, so it would all be out of pocket.
Right, but to get credit towards your deductible, you need to have up-to-date premium payments.
Okay. Sorry. Here you go. Here's my credit card. If we could just hurry, though, that'd be great, because my apartment is literally on fire.
So sorry, but we don't take American Express. Talking over me.
Oh, sorry. Here you go.
Actually, hold up. This isn't your home precinct.
It should be. I live right around the corner.
New address?
Yeah, we moved a couple months ago.
Well, that's an issue because your primary care precinct is still tied to your former address. This precinct is out of network for you, so I'm gonna need a referral.
A referral? There's a fire in my apartment. Right now!
Oh, dear.
What?
Did you recently change jobs?
Yes, so what?
There's a gap in your insurance.
Your old coverage was tied to your old job, so when you shifted jobs...
My home is literally burning down!
Hey, could be worse.
How?
Was it on fire when you moved in?
No, of course not.
Seen it before, and then it's a pre-existing condition and it's not covered.
See how it feels?
I kind of like it.
Oh,
What?
the crossword. Carpe Sharpe.
Ooh, nice pull.
This is absurd!
It would be absurd if we ran fire departments like this.
So why do we run healthcare this way?
Hey, I live right next door to you. Your apartment fire spread to my apartment.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Here, take a bucket. Can you help us?
Are you insured?
All right, chat. We're going to pull out the deep lore video. It's a video I've watched on this stream 10 fucking times at least.
American housing is in crisis. Right now, up to 12 million Americans are behind an average of $5,800 on rent and risk eviction. With eviction moratoriums soon to expire, we're facing an unprecedented wave of evictions and foreclosures that will crash straight into millions of struggling families across the country. But the truth is, this crisis didn't begin with the pandemic. In fact, housing has been in crisis for a very long time.
It's very important to understand that this is why I've supported Zohran for so many years. It's because this was 6 years ago, I think this video came out. 4 years ago, excuse me. 4 years ago. And he said housing has been in crisis. He knew there was a housing crisis 4 years ago. Imagine if we had acted in 2021 to solve the housing crisis. Maybe Donald Trump doesn't get elected in the first place because housing cost inflation was one of the biggest problems that has led to the collapse of support for the Democratic Party. It was one of the key drivers of the cost of living crisis. And there was Zohran. And here's the thing about him. He has, and as you're going to see in this video, he proposes policies that actually work and exist in other countries and other places and have proven to work. It's not pie on the sky. It's pie on the neighbor's windowsill. We just have to reach out and grab the ideas and bring them here.
Even before the pandemic, in places like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, median rents for even one-bedroom apartments could approach $2,500 a month.
Oh, remember when it was $2,500 a month, chat? Remember when it was $2,500 a month? Now Now, according to apartments.com, it's $3,031 a month. Gone up 20%, a 4.3% increase in the last year. And if you want a two-bedroom, $41.82 a month for 869 square feet. This is fucking terrible.
Or more. About a third of people in Los Angeles spend a majority of their income on housing. In New York City, about 20% of all renters pay most of their income to their landlord. And in my district, Astoria, about a quarter of residents have to spend most of their paycheck on rent. And the crisis isn't just in big cities. In 95% of all US counties, workers making the minimum don't make enough to afford a one-bedroom rental on their own. The Harvard Center for Housing Studies warns of a new normal for housing in the United States, in which nearly half of all renter households spend almost a third of their income on rent. That's why even before the fallout from the coronavirus started to hit, more than 500,000 Americans nationwide were already homeless, millions more on the brink of losing their housing, and countless families struggling every month to make ends meet.
And to bring it back to New York, where Zohran talks, and when I react to things, chat, I like to actually react to them and not just sit here like a fucking lump on the log. I try to provide additional content. So you're welcome. New Yorkers spend higher percentage of income on housing than any other state. Empire renters are shelling out more than half their income just to keep a roof over their head. New York renters spend a whopping 54.52% of their median monthly household income on housing.
At the root of all of this suffering is the fact that in this country, housing is treated as a commodity, not a right. It's a consumer product, just like clothes or cars, that private businesses can sell on the market to make a profit. And if someone isn't able to pay, either because their landlord raised their rent or because they can't work for one reason or another, they're not able to stay in their homes. If they're lucky, they can live with friends or family, or maybe in transitional housing for a bit. But for a lot of people, they have nowhere else to go, and they end up sleeping on the streets. In December 2019, the number of people sleeping in homeless shelters in New York reached 19,000 people, an all-time high. 100,000 New York City students are homeless. That's more than 10% of the entire student population. Why do so many people end up homeless? It's not because there aren't enough homes to go around. There are plenty of empty homes. No, it's because housing people is not the primary goal of developers or landlords. Their goal, simply put, is to make a profit. And it's much more profitable.
I regret to inform you that the numbers have skyrocketed. New York City accounted for 93% of the increase in the state's total homeless population. In January 2022, there were 45,343 people in New York City shelters run by the city's Department of Homeless Services. By January 2024, there were 89,119 people in DHS shelters, 34,000 of whom were asylum seekers. Homelessness has absolutely skyrocketed in this country.
Profitable to build luxury apartments for the rich than decent homes for the poor. This gives us a big shortage of homes for ordinary working people. For every 100 households that are extremely low income, there are only 36 affordable and available homes.
That's the free market, chat.
As a result,
That's the free market. The free market said there is no housing for working class people. There's no housing for middle class people. And this is why YIMBYism alone, just removing housing, just building market rate housing, cannot fix the problem. And this is why I support Zohran. Zohran, he's okay with, hey, if you want to, if up zoning stuff near transit increases the supply of housing, he's not against market housing. You want to invest in housing? Go for it. But he also recognizes something that's very important, and that is every housing market that works in this world, whether it's Vienna, whether it is Singapore, they have social housing that is high quality, and not just for the very poor people, but for everyone, working class people, middle class people, and they make it a right. And it's not shameful to live in social housing in Singapore and Vienna. That's what regular people do. And so landlords, yes, there's a private market of housing for the very top, for the well-off. If you want to spend a lot on your housing, if you want to live in that penthouse, you're allowed to do that there. But for regular everyday people, they get a high quality apartment that you would be proud to live in. And they get charged what it costs to maintain. They don't get charged massive overcharges so that some investor can make profit.
Plenty of housing for the rich, but poor and working class people don't have nearly enough on the market.
Quick aside, chat. All these polls are fake. They had a poll showing Kamala was winning and it was all a scam. Hey, dumbass. Hey, dumb piece of shit. You're in Mike from PA's channel. I predicted 49 out of 50 states correct. And I did so by looking at the polls, which showed that Donald Trump was the favorite. You dumbass. I analyzed the polls correctly in 2024. I analyzed the polls correctly in 2020. You're stupid. I told you that Trump was going to win. I predicted that Trump was going to win.
So we have people scrounging to make ends meet or sleeping on the streets right below luxury condos and uninhabited apartments. This is a terrible way to organize a housing market. It might be profitable for landlords and developers, but it's not efficient or beneficial for the rest of society. In fact, housing doesn't have to be seen as a market at all. In other countries, housing is considered a fundamental right, like education or healthcare. That means the government goes to significant lengths to guarantee everyone has a home. And
this is what makes Zohran Mamdani, get it right, the best candidate we've ever had in America. Because it's not just that he has the moral certainty that housing is a human right. He studied it. And he said, okay, I believe housing is a fundamental right. How do I deliver it for people? It's not just my conviction. It's not just my morals, but how do I deliver? And he went and he studied the systems that do it. And he did the homework. And he's ready to implement a plan. That's what makes him worthy of your trust.
That means the government goes to significant lengths to guarantee everyone has a home, and the market plays a much smaller role in the construction and distribution of housing. So let's hop across the pond and about 100 years back in time to take a look at just one example of how an alternative housing model got started in beautiful red Vienna. At the end of the First World War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, leaving behind a number of successor states, including modern-day Austria, home to the former imperial capital of Vienna, the 5th largest city in the world. Despite being the seat of an empire, the chaos of the war and decades of neglect had left the working class of Vienna in desperate circumstances. Inflation was rampant, jobs were scarce, social services were non-existent, and hundreds of thousands of people were crammed into decaying tenements where overcrowding, disease, and violence were rampant. So it's no surprise that in 1919, at the first elections ever held in Austria where all adult citizens could vote, the Social Democratic Party swept into power at the municipal level on the promise of dramatic social and economic reform. And they delivered. The new government of Vienna implemented a huge range of services, including public health care and public child care. They built high-quality hospitals, schools, and recreational facilities. But their crowning achievement was an ambitious program of social housing, what Americans call public housing, that began in 1923 and saw 60,000 new apartments constructed in the first year of its existence, built by the government and financed by taxes on the rich.
It's important to understand, chat. 60,000 apartments were built in the first year. Do you know what New York City built last year? Now, Vienna is a lot smaller than Austria. I think New York City is 5 times bigger than Vienna by population. They only built 30,000 apartments last year. They only built 30,000 apartments last year in the private market. Most of them for the high end.
Built by the government and financed by taxes on the rich. But these weren't the kinds of apartments you might picture when you think of public housing in the United States. Drab high-rises plagued by chronic neglect and underinvestment. Residents could enjoy leafy courtyards, wide open spaces, and plenty of natural light. They had shared laundries, state-of-the-art kitchens, food co-ops, bathhouses, pharmacies, lecture halls, schools, and swimming pools. These apartments were designed to be both beautiful to look at and beautiful to live in, fostering a sense of shared community among the people who lived there. And the best part was that because the city didn't have to worry about making a profit, just about paying off their maintenance costs, these homes were both much nicer and much cheaper than what workers had previously known. In 1926, the average rent in Viennese social housing was about just 4% of a monthly wage.
I want you to look at this, chat, and this is for liberals. The reason why the Social Democratic Party of Austria was able to achieve this unbelievable feat is because they didn't hide from socialism, from the idea that the world could be better, that they had the courage and the conviction to go after a system of exploitation and then deliver. They didn't go halfway. It wasn't a tax credit. It wasn't a TIF. It wasn't a housing zoning variance. It was government housing owned by the government for the working class and being proud to build something of high quality. Not the minimum for the very poor, but for every working member of Viennese society. And they slapped Karl Marx on it.
Wage. The first 15 years after Austrian independence saw its capital transform from a symbol of urban blight into a beacon of socialist governance. It became known as Red Vienna, after the official color of the socialists who had pioneered these changes. And even though Red Vienna fell in 1934 when the country was seized by fascists, who did what they could to roll back social housing, that commitment to good, cheap housing remained after the Second World War. Today, an astonishing 62% of all city residents live in social housing, with the average monthly rent falling somewhere between $400 and $600 a month, with subsidies for lower-income tenants. That is
I want you to understand, chat, that because these programs are focused on the actual costs and not letting land speculators make money, not letting banks make money, but focused on what do the carpenters need to be paid. Do you think Viennese carpenters are not well paid? They're very well paid. Viennese carpenters, electricians, roofers, painters, glazers, pipe fitters, you name it, they're very well paid. They pay for the same materials that you do. But their rent is cheap because they've cut out the financial parasites. They've cut out the Wall Streeters. They've cut out the land speculators. They are providing this from the laborers that produce them with land provided by the city and delivering for regular people.
Fraction of what people in America pay. Unlike in the United States, where public housing is treated as a worst-case way to house the very poor, Vienna's social housing residents are extremely diverse.
These are what social housing looks like in Vienna now, chat.
Except the top fifth of the population is eligible to live in social housing. This means there's broad appeal across many segments of society, which creates the foundation for its political popularity. That is how the majority of people in Vienna enjoy something that's considered almost utopian here in New York. Affordable housing that isn't just cheap, but desirable. Housing that isn't just four walls and a roof, but a real home, with a sense of stability, safety, and community built in. Now, of course, this is only one example of an alternative framework for housing, and Vienna has not fully removed housing from the domain of the market. Residents still pay part of their earnings in rent to cover operational costs, and a sizable chunk of the population lives in private housing. But it's an actually existing alternative that shows us what a step toward a better world could look like. If we want to end the housing crisis, the solution has to be moving toward the full decommodification of housing. In other words, moving away from the status quo, in which most people access housing by purchasing it on the market, and toward a future where we guarantee high-quality housing to all as a human right. So how can we do it? We can start by making sure people who access housing on the private market have ironclad protections against abuse and exploitation. But to go further, toward the Vienna model, we'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to build beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to guide us. And we know how we'll get there. Through a movement of the multiracial working class organizing for the better world we know is possible. And we've already begun. I'm Zohran Mamdani, Assemblyman for New York's 36th Assembly District in Astoria, Queens, for the Gremloe Institute.
You know, chat, this is what I'm talking about, man. This is what I'm talking about. You only get this kind of, you only get a few of these opportunities in your life to find someone who is well-read, educated, policy wonk, uncorruptible, incorruptible, charismatic, and most importantly, hot. This is why you need to get out there. If you've ever wanted to see a better world and work your ass off for Zohran. And I got to tell you one more thing, chat. It's not going to end on election day. It's not going to end on primary day. It's not going to end on general election day. That's day one, because we're going to be fighting the capitalist class every step of the way. This isn't cast a vote and then go to brunch. This is cast a vote and conscript into the army, ready to fight. The biggest lie you've ever been told by Democrat politicians is all you have to do is vote. That's the last thing you need to do. The first thing you need to do is be ready to fight. And that's what I'm asking you to do with me. Fight for Zohran so that we can fight for each other.
Well, the veteran who owns the car told us she has no idea who Mike is.
Mike. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. But your man,